boy do I have the video for you all today. Now guys, this might be the most ridiculous video essay I've ever done, but I recently watched Rudolph the Red-Nosed Reindeer in 1964, and while I grew up watching this film, I rewatched it again for the first time in probably 10 or so years and was pretty astonished at how downright dictatorial this film's depiction of the North Pole is. Now, pinning down its exact political ideology is probably impossible because all the negative actions and policies shown in the film are simply there as narrative to support the moral of the story, which is that societies that condemn differences are rigid and flawed. However, I think the writers totally wrote themselves into a wall with their version of Santa because he contradicts just about everything the story puts forth and is, in this story, a total dictator. But more on that later. Now, just to be clear, guys, I am no political scientist, but while watching this, I saw traces of authoritarianism, fascism, corporatism, paternalism, totalitarianism, utilitarianism, conformism, and technocracy. So stick with me for a second while I just pick apart and show you all of the horrible ideologies that is showcased in the North Pole and Santa in this movie. Now to start out, let's just step back and wonder what the actual freak this story is even about. We have a reindeer that's born with a red nose that glows and is essentially rejected by society, and Santa doesn't seem to care until he sees Rudolph's nose is useful for a night because there's an awful storm and his nose would light the way. And Rudolph's naive ass is honored to do so. Now, the original story was written in 1939 by Robert L. May as a department booklet for children. I don't know what he was on to think this story up, but both the song and the original source material don't have enough substance to derive any kind of political ideology, but this damn movie definitely does. So let's start from the beginning. We got a reindeer Rudolph who was born with a glowing red nose. The father is one of Santa's most prominent flying reindeer, Donner, who was initially conformist upon seeing his son's red nose and is ashamed of it. Santa sees it and is very concerned. Donner tells him he will find a way to fix it to protect his good name, and he tries to cover it with some dirt. Now you're probably thinking, this isn't that significant and doesn't reflect much of a political or social ideology and is just a reflection of bad or average parenting from parents who just want their child to fit in and want to shield him or her from any kind of bullying that young children are so notorious for. Which is all fine and dandy, but the extremity of the reaction to the exposure of Rudolph's red nose or anything else that goes against the utility of toy production reflects some serious ideological conditioning. Rudolph's parents are probably concerned because they know something as abnormal as an elf dentist will get shunned by the entire society, and there are no policies in the regime to help them, so they have good reason to be concerned. And you could see this action as nothing more than protective parenting, but Donner is one of Santa's top flying reindeer. Now, I'd assume he is very ingrained in and accepting of this conformist ideology to shame and be away with anything that doesn't support toy production. So don't think of Donner as some victim to the system who is simply trying to avoid danger and survive, avoiding attention. What I'm trying to say here is he wouldn't have been someone to hide the Jews. Since Donner is a high-ranking official who works closely with Santa, I'd say it would be more accurate to compare him to one of Hitler's high-ranking top generals or strategists who had a gay son or something. Now, I'm looking way too deep into this, but you know what? If I'm going to make this vid, I'm going all the way, so stick with me. So, now that we know Donner is most likely a proprietor of North Pole conformist and authoritarian propaganda and fascist policies, we can move on to the Santa Youth Camp. This is where young reindeer engage in reindeer games, which I guess is short for a school where they are taught to fly and also segregate minorities. Rudolph and the young reindeer are forced to go to this school, I assume, otherwise I don't see a world where Rudolph's parents would be stupid enough to send him here. But anyway, he shows up with his dirt-covered black nose and shows some extreme talent for flying. Santa happens to be observing when Rudolph displays some, I'm assuming, very premature flight ability and is immediately interested in him. However, Rudolph's nose is exposed and Santa shames Donner immediately for hiding it and then says it is a pity and walks away forever, showing his intense hatred for anything that deviates at all from his current system of toy production. Now guys, this dude was present at Rudolph's birth, and the first thing he said upon seeing him was fix the nose. He clearly sees his reindeer as nothing more than slaves for toy production. Then their adult flight instructor Comet and the rest of the children tell Rudolph he doesn't belong anywhere near them essentially. Comet is technically the one who says we won't let Rudolph play in any reindeer games, which shows his radicalized and extremist mentality that he probably got from other teachers and authoritarian figures leading all the way up back to Santa. Rudolph's red nose basically constitutes literal societal rejection even at his very young age. The moment his red nose was exposed, he was immediately shamed for something completely out of his control. Now, this has to be the result of widespread societal adoption of conformist and downright fascist propaganda and ideological implication. Red Nose doesn't support toy production, and is weird and a little gay, so there's no way it's acceptable. It's a threat to the North Pole life, culture, maybe religion, I don't know, and above all else, toy production. So Rudolph decides, hell with this, I'm out of here, and he leaves at his very young age. And now we jump to our gay anarchist elf twink Hermy, an elf who doesn't want to make toys. He instead wants to be a dentist, which I assume due to your average North Pole diet is already a heavily marginalized group of people, if they exist at all, or haven't left or been banished yet. Hermy doesn't want to participate in the state-enforced unpaid labor of toy making and wants to instead follow his dreams of dentistry. His technocratic boss is aware, however, that dentistry doesn't support the North Pole GDP value, so he responds quite harshly. Now, this elf boss must think that Santa is holy. He changes his voice when he speaks to him, and he grovels at his very feet. And in return, Santa couldn't care less about him. Maybe the regime is run like a type of ancient Japanese monarchy where everyone sees Santa as a god. Maybe, since Santa is clearly not an elf, he simply moved to the North Pole and through some religious conditioning convinced the elves that he is a messianic figure or prophet and through that enslaved them. But anyway, clearly this place is insanely rooted in conformist and utilitarian tendencies, and the fact that whoever the leaders are tend to display more extremism and dedication to the regime, which shows that the more dedication extremism you display, the more available positions of power are to you. Basically, the more radical you are in excluding other people and other ways of life, the higher up you'll find yourself. I'm assuming Santa is the one hiring this technocrat to be in charge of the elves and conformist comet to brainwash the baby reindeer at the Santa youth camp. But anyway, Hermy says, this system sucks, and if I'm going to be forced to do slave labor, at least let it be for something I'm passionate about. So he leaves and stumbles upon Rudolph. They decide being quirky is cool and leaving this authoritarian regime and conformist society is actually honorable. Then they stumble upon Yukon Cornelius, a gold digger. Yukon, I think, is a representation of what Hermy and Rudolph aspire to be. He's an anarchist, isolationist who doesn't need regime or government. He finds freedom in survival. He quickly accepts Hermy and Rudolph for their gayness and shows them love and respect. What exactly this dude did to be banished, I have no idea, but the fact that he so quickly accepts Hermy and Rudolph shows he either left the North Pole because he despised their policies so much, or he's from somewhere else that hasn't the slightest exposure or conditioning from North Pole propaganda. Anyway, they all become good chums, run away from the abominable snowman, and decide to try and move to an island of misfit toys because they themselves are misfits. They get there and some lion eagle who flies around picking up misfit and unwanted toys and gathering them here for some reason meets with them. Seems like their odds of finding a kid to love them is higher when they aren't boonied in the frozen tundra of the North Pole, but whatever, it doesn't matter. He tells them to tell Santa about this place so he can deliver the misfit toys, which is weird because, you have wings, bro, do it yourself. But anyway, I think based on how quickly Santa dismissed Rudolph's flying ability for a glowing nose shows that abnormal toys would have no place in his Christmas town. I'm betting Santa is completely aware of this island and chooses to avoid it. He doesn't want misfit toys tainting his reputation. He leaves the minorities to fend for themselves. This king, I forgot his name, who I'm guessing is in charge of making sure nobody leaves, tells them they can't stay because they aren't toys. Leaving them even more lost because there's no place for them. Not even camps where the useless toys are brought will welcome them. Hermy and Rudolph are so abnormal and rare that there is no system in the regime to take them in. Santa has created a system with no room for outcasts whatsoever, leaving Rudolph and his friend Hermy to wander the frozen wastelands looking for any chance of acceptance. But Rudolph clearly still honors Santa by agreeing to tell him about the misfit toys. Santa, who as we previously demonstrated is very much an authoritarian, utilitarian, conformist dictator who only sees value in things or people or reindeer or elves for that matter when they support toy production. Now, it's important to know at this point that Rudolph's father, mother, and his girlfriend have all left Christmas Town to look for Rudolph, since he went missing. Now, long story short, Rudolph leaves his friend, sets off on his own because he feels his nose will give away he and his friend's location by the abominable snowman and get them all killed. So he leaves and heads home. I don't know if he got sidetracked on the way home, but he gets back and is almost a full-grown buck. He looks for his parents at home, but they aren't there, and Santa tells him they've been missing since he left, and he's very worried because Christmas is a few days away, which again shows how Santa sees the reindeer as nothing more than tools to fly. which is crazy because Santa most definitely knows that there's a crazy abominable snow monster just walking around outside Christmas Town, and the first thing he's worried about is Christmas being ruined because Donner, Rudolph's dad, won't be there to help his sleigh fly. And yeah, then like a huge blizzard hits. Rudolph checks out again and finds his parents and friends in the Abominable's cave, and together they fight the Abominable Snowman. Hermy takes out its teeth after they knock it out, and then it's no longer a threat, and Yukon tackles it off a cliff for some reason. I don't know. After this, Rudolph realizes his nose can help people because it blinded the Abominable Snowman for a second, so he packs up for home again, this time with his family and friends, still showing faith that Santa is there to help and that he is a good person. Somehow they get through what seems to be the most intense blizzard the North Pole has ever faced, and they arrive back in Christmas Town on Christmas Eve. Santa's in a bad mood because he thinks it will be impossible to travel in the storm, but after seeing Rudolph's nose, he has the bright idea to use him as some sort of headlight for his sleigh. Rudolph says he would be honored to guide his sleigh, and ends with them saving Christmas. Alright. Now let's try and see what probably happened after Rudolph saved Christmas, when he returned home. Based on how Santa acted the entire film and the rest of the elves, I think we have a good idea of what he would do. Not once does Santa show any kind of arc where he learns to not be a conformist utilitarian anymore. He never apologizes to Rudolph for writing off his flying ability because of his weird nose. He delivers some misfit toys, which I think is either because he saw them as free so he could save lots of money in toy production, or he just did it so Rudolph would lead his sleigh. And after they were done, he pretended like they didn't exist again. Hermy was probably waterboarded and experimented on until his gay tendencies left him, and Rudolph was probably sent to a labor camp until another storm hit and his nose would show its usefulness again. Yukon finds the gold he was after in the North Pole, but I'm sure Santa came up with some BS excuse to take it from him because the gold was found on his land or something. But yeah, any way you slice it, this red is a dictator and authoritarian demon who only sees value in the living people around him when they support his toy production. Okay, let's go ahead and review. I gave a list at the beginning of the video talking about all of the ideologies we find in the North Pole in this movie, so I'm going to go through now all the ideologies I listed in the beginning and explain how each one of them is found in this movie. Okay, so starting with number 1, we have authoritarianism. Santa and the elders enforce strict rules. Rudolph's nose, Hermy's dentistry is punished or excluded. There's traces of fascism. There's a strong emphasis on conformity, tradition, and exclusion of those who don't fit the ideal elf or reindeer. We see corporatism. The North Pole functions like a single-purpose institution where everyone must serve Santa's production system. After that, we have paternalism. Authority figures deciding what's best for other people and what should or shouldn't be accepted in culture and society. Totalitarianism. Social life, work, everything, your identity is put on those things and it's controlled by the system, and there's absolutely zero space whatsoever for individuality. Utilitarianism. Rudolph is accepted only when his nose is useful to Santa, meaning everyone in this land is seen as something useful or as a tool, and again, the individual part of you just does not exist unless it provides for the system. Conformism. Characters are pressured to suppress themselves and just get in line and act like everybody else, leaving no room for diversity. And technocracy. Value is placed on efficiency and function. So like toy making, reindeer flying, whatever, navigational usefulness in terms of Rudolph, and that all comes above your personal identity. Like I said before, guys, if it doesn't support toy production, it doesn't belong in Christmas Town. Take your stupid gay ideas, get them out of here. Santa doesn't want them. So I'm just going to go ahead and think that Santa Claus is a utilitarian conformist, probably a little fascist too. If you guys enjoyed this or found it entertaining, thank you. I sure had a fun time writing it up. Merry Christmas. Go ahead and follow me on Letterboxd if you guys don't, and make sure to subscribe too. We make at least a few of these videos a month. And then if you guys are also interested in just movie reviewing and current movie events and my thoughts on that, I actually have a podcast that I run with my friends, the other two hosts of this channel, so check that out as well if you guys are feeling it. I'll put a link to the YouTube channel in the description. Give us a listen. Love you guys. Next time.